Hello everyone, today I want to talk about sexual polarity of the 1-year life transformation challenge and how to make it work within your relationship. Hello everyone, as promised in the intro, I want to talk about the super sexy topic of sexual polarity. That is the difference between men and women, the difference that makes the difference, the attraction, that thin sliver of polarity, those differences that we appreciate in each other and are naturally drawn to. How to rekindle those things as they die in a relationship and how to observe them and really understand them, because without that polarity, relationships just fade and die. So as always, I'm going to begin with a quote on the subject, and that quote is, "Knowing yourself and who you are is essential to having happy and balanced friendships and sexual relationships. When you are unsure of yourself and tend to vacillate back and forth between masculine or feminine, instead of acting consistent with your dominant natural sexual essence, you will instantly turn off your lover and they will lose sexual attraction for you. Masculine energy tends to be certain, bold, courageous, willing to take risks, indifferent to chaos or things that are disconcerting, similar to a rock or a mountain. Feminine energy tends to be at times unsure of itself, soft, submissive, emotional, focused on bonding, connecting relationships, and similar to the unpredictability of Mother Nature." Coach Corey Wayne. Men and women are designed to bring into essence totality, and we work so well together. You know, you can imagine in the adrenaline and the testosterone that would cause cavemen in tribes to hit each other over the heads, and then the women to come in with loving empathy and connect those bonds and re-establish the tribal groups, and how it would just keep balancing so beautifully. But we live in a society now that's basically attacking difference. It's creating difference and creating separation and then attacking it. It's not seeing the beauty in difference and how it merges together. And it's becoming very, very difficult. And I found this incredibly difficult growing up because I felt naturally as a man I was there to protect and to be a decision maker and to be a direct linear force within my relationships. And I observed and really appreciated within the women in my life their ability to show me the softer side, to help me understand how important it was to be focused on relationships and not things, and really look for love and connection, which were things that without those women in my life I would have just skated straight past through. However, as I watched more media and I had more people come into my lives and tell me the way they saw the world, I saw this real feminization of my personality where I was too scared to make a decision, or I didn't want to be seen to be forcing my women into certain things or making decisions for them, and I became indecisive. And as I took on more of the feminine modeling, the attraction would dissipate and we just, you get to that place where you go, I don't know what's happened, but the spark isn't there anymore, and the spark is the sexual polarity. So I want to talk about this today. It's an incredibly important subject. This is why relationships fail, and I see it. I can tell you 99 out of 100 of the relationships I observe with either my friends or family, there is a polarity difference. And generally, when men and women have effortless seduction, which we talked about in the last video, and they come together, they both naturally take on male and female prototypes. It's effortless. The man's making the dates and decisions, the woman's opening up and connecting and helping the man realize his emotions. But as these relationships get longer and longer and longer, more brainwashing from the media comes in, and more often than not, those relationships really deteriorate from a sexual polarity perspective. I once heard it said, if you put $1 in a jar for every time you have sex within the first year, you'd have more money in that jar than you would for the next 20 years, and it's true. The polarity really drives that sexual connection, and the sexual connection, our union, our coming together, the yin and the yang, those two energies is what creates life force. So it's a beautiful thing, and we really need to cut out all this junk about men buying $800 bottles of mascara or whatever you're trying to be sold at the moment. We really need to cut through and just get back to connection and love. So I know it's affected me, but now I'm much more comfortable in my dominant masculine, much more comfortable in my masculine essence. Women find it much easier to become feminine because they don't have to become on the front foot decision makers, and they can really help with connection and love, which they're much better at than I am, and I can take care of the things that I'm naturally good at. Obviously this is not a panacea for all. There's going to be women who have more of a masculine aspect and men who have more of a feminine aspect, but ultimately what happens is those two individuals will complement each other at some level. So what is the first understanding of sexual polarity? And the first understanding is men give affection for sex and women generally give sex for affection. Now, this is a general rule, and it's basically women have such a drive for connection and love that they use sex as a vehicle to establish that. Because you speak to most women who've been in a relationship for a little while, quite often they'd rather sleep in than have sex. And what they're really saying is they're not getting the affection and love, so they don't see the point in having sex. Quite often women are much smarter about the challenges and dangers of having sex and the relation and the emotions they can cause if unfulfilled, whereas men are like bull in a china store, they just rush through. And quite often the affection that men learn to give through a relationship is obviously rewarded through sex, and the way the affection, the attention that's shown to a woman makes her more sexually receptive. And we can't shirk our biology, no matter how homogenous that the media tries to make us. Men are driven by sex, and the idea of creating as many offspring as you can in order to create genetic diversity is hardwired into us. But what we can learn through the sacred feminine is we can learn about connection and love, which transcends that. And what women can learn is they can understand that being open and receptive, not only emotionally but physically, being receptive and receiving a man emotionally and physically, can really help open up themselves, feeling more comfortable about their body, feeling more comfortable about their position, and we can grow together. Number 2, DNA searching is a filter that you're running. You know how sometimes in your computer you have a virus scan running in the background, you're not even aware? Well, your DNA is always looking for benchmarks in gender. You can't cheat your DNA. In fact, they do studies, incredible studies, where men can pick the faces of women who are ovulating 9 times out of 10, but they have no clue about ovulation. They just see it in the eyes and the skin color in the face. And women, there's a thing called the Adonis ratio, which is the proportions between your shoulders and your hips, that V that men quite often look to get in the gym. And cross cultures, whether it's Africa or Australia, women are genetically drawn towards that Adonis profile. Now, in surveys, when they ask why they pick that man, quite often they'll say, he has kind eyes, or it looks like he'd be a good person to talk to, because they're not even aware of the genetic things pushing them towards that DNA, and the DNA is always right. Your gut knows what you want. Just because your conscious brain isn't aware of it, understand that when you're attracted to someone, there's reasons why you're attracted, and your brain can tell you a lot of things, but you should really explore that and understand that. Number 3, the Yin Yang. Gender roles create balance. Could you imagine a world where it's just men? I think we'd probably all kill each other. And could you imagine a world where there's all women? I don't know how that would be, but I don't think that would be as ideal as the world we live in today. But this yin and this yang, this submissive and then this dominant and then this nurturing and this destructive side that comes into play is really important for us to create balance in the universe. So this concept that we all have to be the same, we all have to work the same jobs, do the same things, be involved in the same projects, aspire to, it's crazy. We'll just create this homogenized world and end up in a genderless world, and life will cease to exist. The other understanding is that consumer creations blurs the line between men and women. Now, capitalism is an interesting vehicle, and it's changed the way we live, really. And what happened during the 1930s and 40s is, as women entered the workforce in order to help with the murderous wars that were going on around the world, to produce bullets and gun shells and to be patriotic, and funnily enough they were doing it in Germany against the Americans were doing it against the Germans, and everyone thought they were right. So what that did was that created a wage for women, which they never had before. Women are traditionally in the model of raising children, which is the most important job in the world, raising human beings to be good human beings, to look after the planet, right? Important job. But this thing tweaked in marketers' minds where all these women had this income. What do we sell them? Well, all of a sudden, the marketing was directed towards women. Cosmetics exploded, dresses, shoes. Women were really bombarded with marketing that they didn't look a certain way, didn't have the latest Coco Chanel dress. They were worthless. Now, that worked incredibly well, and it drove a whole new archetype of women. Marketers were so excited about it in the late 80s and early 90s, they started realizing cosmetics is one of the biggest businesses in the world. Let's start selling it to men. Let's start telling men they need to moisturize twice a day. They need to, have these different products that they can use all the time. And understanding that that's a marketing creation. Men looking like women was important for marketers, and that's not the natural way we are. There are differences we should appreciate. Understanding hormonal changes is really, really important as well. The hormones are the vibrational energy of the universe, slowing and condensing into a form in which your brain, the receiver for this cosmic energy, can understand and make changes in your body. And there are hormonal differences between men and women. The testosterone, which drives men, is about power, direction, leadership, goal, purpose. That's what happens when you inject someone with testosterone. That's what happens. They get more energetic. They become more aggressive. And the opposite is true of estrogen. When you inject someone with estrogen, they become more passive. They become more understanding. They become more willing to communicate, open up, and understand other people's points of view. So this concept that we're the same, yet we have two fundamentally different hormones running our systems, is flawed. And that idea of hashtag equality, let's all be exactly the same, will never bond, never click. We must understand the differences and what drives us and bring them together, because if we constantly are, otherwise it will just be a constant fight. Understanding about sexual polarity and make sure you manifest it in your relationship is all about space and outside pursuits. When you fell in love with the person you fell in love with, you didn't fall in love with the concept of you as a couple. You fell in love with that individual, their hobbies, their pursuits, the fact that they love poetry, the fact they love to climb mountains. You love that. And then what happens in a relationship is over time, that person gives up that space, gives up those pursuits, and all of a sudden, the man or the woman's going, I can't even remember why I fell in love with you. No wonder they can't remember. It's been so long since that person has behaved in the way that which allowed that person to fall in love with them. That's why space is so important in the relationship. Being together 100% of the time is a crutch. It's an enabling attitude. You really need to develop each other individually as well as together in order to keep the polarity. I can guarantee you, I know a lot of couples who spend a lot of time together and it doesn't help. It doesn't fix it. More time together doesn't fix a relationship. More attention and intention and focus definitely does in the time that you're together, but you need space to create that. No one can be 100% attentive to their wife or their partner or their husband or their spouse all the time. But I tell you what, when you've gone away for a week to work or to chase your pursuit, when you see that person, bang, they've got you, and that sexual polarity is right there. You quite often, make-up sex, when people have been broken up for a couple of days and they have make-up sex, it's their best sex. Why? Because it was that gap, that space. Difference is attraction. We need to appreciate this. Trying to create this hashtag equality, homogenous world where everything's exactly the same there's not going to be any sex, I can tell you that, because difference is attraction. Even in gay couples, you'll quite often walk down the street and see what in lesbian circles might be called a butch, where the woman maybe is dressed more like a man, then you have a more feminine lesbian with that person. And same with men. You'll see quite often the man with the will take on the prototype of the wrist movements, maybe the higher voice, and quite often there'll be gay guys you'd never think are gay in a million years. They have the deep voice and they act like a manly man. But the best gay relationships have sexual polarity as well, and they're created and understood by those individuals. And that's even within same sex. So the concept of taking on a feminine role or a masculine role isn't always just about your sex or your gender. You can use these stereotypes to create sexual polarity. In fact, when I've spoken to gay couples quite often about relationship challenges, and I can almost immediately identify that quite often no role is being played by each other, therefore the sexual attraction is lost. But when I ask them what attracted each other in the first place, quite often they'll say, oh, he was so dominant, he was so, I really appreciated his focus and his attention, his drive. Speak to the other partner, I really appreciated how he could communicate so well, I really appreciated that he could come across so well, and he really helped me understand matters of the heart. And then you ask them, well, what's going on now? They're both behaving the same. They've lost that difference and that polarity. The second to last way to create polarity is mystery. Don't be regurgitating everything that's ever happened to you in your entire life. Create mystery, create drama. When you're taking someone out, don't tell them where you're going. If you go to, every Saturday, you go to a pet store and look at pets, don't do it every Saturday. Break it up, create mystery, drama. That's the intrigue and the beautiful things that create relationship. I don't care if you've been in a relationship for 40 years. You can always just grab your partner by the hand, jump in the car and go to a waterfall, telling them that you're going to McDonald's and then ending up at a beautiful waterfall. That stuff can be done at any stage and there's no excuse not to. When that stuff stops, it's an indication that perhaps there's bigger problems in the relationship. And finally, the biggest way to create sexual polarity is presence. When you're present and you look someone directly in the eye and that love can be seen, that will create absolute want in that partner. The eyes, the pupils expand and there's a real connection. Being present with your partner is the sexiest thing you could ever do for them. Whether you're a gay couple, straight couple, whatever, give your relationship presence and the sexual polarity will increase. We're different. We're different. Every single species on the planet, whether male or female, brings into existence the parts of the world that are beautiful. I'm observing at the moment, and I'm really starting to think whether it's a great idea that we expect women to be supermodels, CEOs and mothers, and think that that's healthy and say, well, they should be able to do everything men can do. Well, men can't give birth to children. So, you know, there's going to be challenges in trying to get everyone to be able to do everything under this hashtag of political correctness. But ultimately, looking each other in the eye and saying, thank God for femininity in the world, the beauty that it brings in the world, and thank God for masculinity, the drive and the ambition that brings into the world, because those two things together are going to set us free. Not these Revlon commercials or CoverGirl commercials, just the connection between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman. Connection is connection. Something to think about. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. But until then, goodbye.